The morning after the intense night that had shifted everything, Elena woke with a lingering sense of both unease and anticipation, the city lights fading as the sun began to rise over Manhattan. And though she tried to focus on her daily routine, her mind kept drifting back to Adrian, to the steady way he had held her, the warmth beneath his professional exterior, and the subtle but undeniable tension that had formed between them, a tension that neither could openly acknowledge, but that now hung in the air with every shared glance, every slight brush of hands, and every silent gesture. Breakfast passed in near silence, the clink of coffee cups the only sound, as Elena studied him carefully from across the table, noting the small details, the way his posture remained impeccable, the calm intensity in his eyes, the occasional flicker of concern when she made a sudden movement or glanced nervously toward the window, and she felt herself both comforted and unnerved by his constant vigilance. Adrian, for his part, remained outwardly composed, maintaining the professional boundaries that had defined his role from the start, yet inwardly he battled a growing awareness that his feelings for Elena were evolving in ways he had no right to indulge. Every laugh she forced herself to give, every subtle sign of vulnerability, pulling him deeper into a space where duty and desire collided. As they moved through the penthouse, preparing for the day's engagements, Elena found herself asking questions that tested the limits of casual conversation, wanting to know more about the man who had unexpectedly become central to her world, while Adrian answered sparingly, offering glimpses of his past, his training, his philosophies, always careful not to cross into territory that might compromise the professional relationship, yet revealing enough to spark curiosity and a faint sense of trust. Their routine was interrupted by a message that flashed across Elena's phone, a single anonymous warning that the danger had not ended, that someone was watching and waiting, and Adrian's reaction was immediate and silent, eyes narrowing, muscles tensing as he assessed the threat. And in that instant, Elena realized the fragility of their safety and the depth of her reliance on him, a realization that brought both fear and a strange exhilaration. The day moved forward with carefully orchestrated steps, meetings, appearances, and security measures, each executed with precision. Yet beneath the surface, the subtle dance of connection continued, as Elena began to notice the way Adrian adjusted his stance whenever someone approached too closely, the protective shadow he cast without overt action, and the brief moments when his gaze lingered on her just long enough to send a jolt through her chest. By mid-afternoon, a minor incident in the lobby of her office building tested their coordination, a stranger lingering too long near the entrance, prompting Adrian to position himself subtly between the potential threat and Elena, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder as a signal to move. And the simplicity of the gesture, so easily overlooked by anyone else, struck Elena profoundly, a mix of gratitude, respect, and something far more intimate stirring within her. When they returned to the penthouse later that evening, rain beginning to patter against the windows, Elena found herself drawn to the balcony once more, staring at the reflections of city lights on wet streets below, and Adrian joined her, standing silently behind her, the tension between them palpable, neither speaking, yet both communicating volumes through shared presence, through small deliberate movements, through the air charged with emotion neither could yet name aloud. A conversation finally emerged, tentative at first, as Elena confessed her growing awareness of the danger surrounding her, her fear, her frustrations with the restrictions imposed for her safety, and Adrian listened, responding with honesty, detailing the precautions he was taking, the potential threats, the reasoning behind every movement, and though his tone remained professional, the depth of care in his voice was unmistakable, a clear signal that his commitment extended far beyond duty. As night fell fully over the city, the penthouse bathed in soft ambient light, Elena and Adrian found themselves in a rare quiet moment, a pause from the constant vigilance, a breath in which both allowed themselves to feel more than they should, their proximity charged with unspoken emotion, the closeness of bodies, the subtleties of glances and gestures, the unacknowledged attraction building with a force neither had anticipated, yet both recognized. An unexpected power outage that evening threw the apartment into sudden darkness, prompting a brief surge of panic, and in that split second of heightened awareness, instinct took over as Adrian moved with precision, guiding Elena to safety, his hands steady, his presence a protective shield. And in that split second of heightened awareness, the emotional walls between them cracked further, leaving them both acutely aware of how much they depended on each other, not just for survival, but for the unexpected comfort and connection that had formed. After the power returned, Alina found herself unable to resist the addressing of the shift in their relationship, asking questions that lingered on the edges of personal territory, eliciting tearful responses from Adrian that hinted at his internal struggle, the conflict between professional duty and the growing attachment he can no longer fully suppress. The night continued with subtle, charged interactions, shared glances across the dining table, hands brushing while exchanging objects, the quiet presence of Adrian in the background as Elena moved through the apartment, each moment layered with meaning that neither dared to voice aloud. Exhaustion eventually drew them to separate rooms, yet even in solitude, thoughts of the other dominated, replaying interactions, words, gestures, and emotions, weaving a complex tapestry of trust, desire, and restraint. The day's events concluded with the understanding that life had irrevocably changed since Adrian's arrival, that the line between protector and confidant was no longer clearly defined, and that both Elena and Adrian were now navigating a delicate balance between professional boundaries, personal feelings, and the dangerous reality that surrounded them, aware that one misstep could shatter not only their growing bond, but also their safety. In the quiet moments before sleep, Alina reflected on the subtle shifts she had felt throughout the day, the lingering warmth of Adrian's presence, the way his eyes had followed her without overt intrusion, the calm assurance that he represented in the midst of danger, and she realized that a deeper connection was forming, one that would challenge both of them in ways neither was fully prepared to confront, yet one that carried a magnetic pull impossible to deny, leaving the chapter to close on the silent acknowledgement that life, safety, and the first sparks of desire had become irrevocably intertwined, setting the stage for the next series of trials, emotional awakenings, and the slow and irresistible progression of two hearts drawn together in a world that demanded caution but could not restrain the inevitable.